Hey, welcome to episode 160 of the Titanforge podcast. I'm Ratnos, joined by Trell
That's a lot of episodes.
and Tettles.
Yeah, dude, we've been here for a while. Pretty
We
good.
have indeed, yeah. So this week we have our topic from last week that we got halfway through, and then 2 hours in, we're like, okay, we gotta chop this thing in half.
We realized very late that it was a bit too much of a topic.
We
Yeah.
probably should have known based on the last time we did this. It also happened, but that was also like 2 years ago. So,
It's a lesson we learn once a year or so.
We're gonna have to learn it once a season now.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to talk about Halls of Valor, Temple of the Jade Serpent, Court of Stars, and Shadowmoon Burial Grounds. We're going to give some tips and tricks for each of those dungeons, kind of aimed at players that are sort of familiar with most of the core mechanics, the obvious mechanics, right? But we want to kind of try and help take that to the next level and understand further nuances or intricacies or strats that might not be obvious just from learning how the mechanics, function on a base level. That being said, we do have some news. First piece of news is that 10.0.5 has been announced, and the date is quite soon. It's coming out on January 24th in NA. And then the trading post, which is like this monthly cosmetic, you get like monthly quests to complete to get tokens that give you cosmetics of various kinds. It's going to open on February 1st as well.
Dude,
so
that
pretty
actually
exciting.
sounds cool. And I'm not even into transmog most of the time.
Yeah.
I was shocked whenever I saw the date posted today.
Yeah.
Talking about 10.0.5 already being January 24th. So we got like expansion's been out
Less than 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It will be a little bit less than 2 months by the time that 10.0.5 comes out, even because it came out like 28th of November. I'm down with this patch cycle cadence. This is much better. I mean, one of the major criticisms of Shadowlands was like slow patch cycle. Obviously, this isn't like a major content patch. Like, you're not getting a lot of unique content. You're not getting like a new seasonal effects or something like that. But some classes are getting talent tree changes. This trading post thing seems sick. I'm actually kind of down for this kind of thing, and the fact that they are offering up content before players are like, okay, I'm bored. Now give me new content. That's a big plus in my mind.
I agree. This whole expansion has just been A+ compared to Shadowlands. Like, I think everyone's biggest complaint is probably the Catalyst not being out yet, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
And like
so
compare that to the list of
That's the second thing.
of things that we were complaining about at this point in Shadowlands. Oh man.
yeah, there's been some. I would say this is like the topic that is the most universally like. There's a universal response from all, like, whether you're somebody who's like Dragonflight's great, which is most people, I guess, on Twitter and stuff, or whether you're one of the people who's like still got reservations. Either way, everybody's complaining about the Inspiration Catalyst. That's the big thing. Which, so it is coming on January 23rd, the week of January 23rd, so January 24th, I guess, and it will not work with crafted gear as well, which has been known for a while. But just as a reminder, don't plan to upgrade your crafted gear. Yeah.
So I think that having played out this patch for a little bit, with group loot having returned, I think that the Inspiration Catalyst being as delayed as it is doesn't make any sense anymore. I think maybe with personal loot, there was a bit more of credence to the argument that like, oh, the delayed Inspiration Catalyst, it can be fine because of how personal loot works and like personal loot trading and stuff like that. But as it currently stands with like group loot and like tradable loot and stuff like that, it doesn't seem like it makes, at least to me, much of sense that the Catalyst couldn't have been released. Even if it was released last week, you wouldn't have that many more pieces of tier than somebody who's been raiding every single week and has had group loot be the source of getting them tier.
Yeah, and like it doesn't affect me at all, but I dislike this cadence of when it comes out currently, just because like I have a bunch of very casual friends that play the game just for the leveling process, and then they do some like low mythic plus keys, and then they eventually quit, or at least most of them. And I think almost all of them are going to quit before the Catalyst is even a thing in the game, and they just won't even know that it happened. Like,
okay,
it probably would have kept them playing longer. They get their tier set and have fun with it.
I got your friends the hookup. I know the hack for how they can get tier. So here's the deal. They should either play a Demon Hunter, a Death Knight, or Demon Hunter, Death Knight, or Warlock. Because first off,
Oh, yeah.
that token is probably the easiest to where you can just stack 30 players inside of a raid and not have any of the other 2 token, and nobody else will see them. And so you open up LFG and you're forming the group, and you're making a normal group, because it's going to be easy for you to kill the bosses in a normal pug. And you don't put anybody, and you invite only other people of the other token, and you don't invite anybody on your token.
This works even if you're not on Dreadful, even if you're on, Venerated or Zenith or whatever. Like, yeah, okay.
Okay, you're gonna get people looking at you a little bit weird if you don't have some of these buffs in your group, but it's totally reasonable to not as well.
Yeah, just be like, oh, I couldn't find any warriors. I don't know what happened. Well, I guess we'll just have to go with this. I mean, yeah, 30 people, 10 Venerated, 10 Dreadful, 9 Mystic, 1 Zenith. Don't mind if I do.
Oh, oops! Oh, look, another Zenith dropped.
I mean, dude, I had a friend who did that. Who did that as a demon hunter.
It's the way to. It's dumb, but yeah, that's how it works. I don't know.
I am progging Mythic Razageth right now with 3 normal tier pieces and 1 heroic tier piece because I have had the worst luck with those tokens.
Yeah, well, do splits, noober.
Okay, yeah, just do splits.
I will say, okay, so when you think about the Inspiration Catalyst, right, it's like the first time it came out, there was this same sort of overwhelming, this is too late backlash. I think that will continue happening as long as they have it be released this late. And I see it as kind of a shame because I think the Catalyst represents a big upgrade over not having a Catalyst like we used to, but still it's something where it's got largely negative sentiment because it is so late. So for Blizzard's perspective, I think they need to look at like, why is the Catalyst being delayed? And then why are players unhappy that it's being delayed? And can we find a solution that preserves our priorities and still gets the players happy? And I think that the thing is, like, it just feels really bad to be playing without your 2 or 4 set, right? Like to just know that you are missing that powerful buff. But from Blizzard's perspective, they want you to not be full build insta, right? They want you to have a reason to log into the game in general and raid specifically longer than just the first month of the patch, right? Which obviously there's the argument of just make the game good. People will want to log in to play it for fun, but gearing up your character is fun as well. And when your character is when there's no more upgrades for your character, it does get a little bit like there are a lot of people who will then roll up an alt to start having something they can get gear on again, right? So I do understand Blizzard's perspective there. Squishy, actually, friend of the show, had an idea that I think is pretty good for this, which is instead of making set bonuses this sort of binary thing, they could turn them into something that scales up in power. So your 2 set and 4 set could could start out at like half power, and then upgrading that to full power is something you can do through like raid mats or something like that. But then the Catalyst could be out insta, and you could just get your 4-piece and get the like functionality change or whatever that it has to your rotation without needing to like wait for an Inspiration Catalyst later down the line, and then you'd still have that upgrading the set bonus reason to still play and raid specifically, but also get it from Vault or whatever in general.
Could be a way to preserve the crafting system as well. If you have to somehow craft it in, could be a recorder.
Yeah, again, the specifics I'm not 100% sure how. I just think that it's clearly like this is going to be something where every time they do it like this, it's going to be the big complaint point about the patch. So,
well, I think it's because like it's the important thing that you said is like Blizzard has, I don't want to say conflicting interests, but their interests are a little bit different than the players, because the players' interests are get the best gear as fast as possible, and that includes getting 4 set immediately.
But players are, we understand, and there's not this visceral hatred towards being 410 at the end of the first month and being 420 at the end of the second month, right? Like that, that doesn't make people upset. But having 0 set for the first month, 2 set for the second month, and 4 set for the third month does feel bad, right? People really hate that. So there's got to be a way that we can make this not like what I'm saying is that even though the priorities are different, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. We can get both of these, I think.
Do you think that they're outside of Squishy's idea? Do you think there's any other reasonable alternative idea that you would come up with?
I think if I didn't have a good idea for trying to accomplish both, I would just concede it as Blizzard at this point, because it seems like everybody just agrees like this is the
concede it to
part.
What, like week 2 or something?
Just bring it back to something, yeah.
Because it's already gated a little bit.
I was going to say there might be like some alternative to maybe keep the Inspiration Catalyst late like it is, but just add some little extra bad luck protection. So like the third slot in the vault, whatever content you did, could have like a very, very high chance of containing tier. I mean, I think they just buffed it anyway, or like maybe they could guarantee the third slot to have a tier piece, or like be in the pool of tier piece or special item, something like that.
I mean, tier definitely has dropped at a higher rate out of the vault this expansion than it did last patch. So I don't know. Even still, though,
It's
like
I mean, it's just some people get unlucky. You know, like my monk has gotten full mythic vault as fast as possible and full plus 20s on his vault every single week, and it's never seen a mythic tier piece. And my two alts both have 2-piece mythic gear, and they've never set foot in raid.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
that is definitely an outlier situation, but it does happen. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting point. We'll see what they decide to do with it next patch. I suspect they will make a change to it at this point, but we'll see. Maybe this will just be the new thing that they're stubborn about. And TBH, I like compared to the things they were stubborn about in Shadowlands, this is not the worst of them, but
yeah, that's definitely put it in perspective. This is not the worst problem we could have.
Yeah,
this and like lag, I think, are the only two things I've been seeing people complain about.
Yeah, raid lag has been an issue. I think Sired and Athreus was worse, but there hasn't. This is worse than the last couple of.
I mean, just lag across the board in 10.0 has been brutal. I don't know what it is. It's something about the expansion. It's like not add-on lag. It's like game lag.
Yeah, but did you guys see the post from Blizzard customer service that says if you disconnect, it's probably your connection?
Yeah, if you disconnect while dragon riding, you might have an unstable connection. The thing is, it's like that's possibly part of the reason, right? Like some people do DC on that more than others, right? And it's like, oh, the people that have like 40 ping and 100 jitter or whatever are the people that are DCing, and the people who have like 8 ping and 0 jitter aren't. But like, it's not like you have to have atypically bad internet to DC while you're dragon riding, right? It's like regular internet DCs on that all the time.
Oh yeah.
You hit a rock at a weird angle and you're just gone for fucking 20 minutes.
Yeah, you like clip a branch, you're gone. You press roll or fell rush, you're gone. You know, that's the same issue as the dragon riding issue.
Yeah, the old anti-cheat thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about, so we've had some dungeon hot fixes come in before we go super dungeon by dungeon. Temple of the Jade Serpent has received a little bit of changes to Strife and Peril. They have nerfed the damage, but they've also changed how Feeling of Superiority works, which used to be pretty abusable, right?
So Feeling of Superiority used to stack infinitely. Well, I think it still does stack infinitely, right? But the damage from the dot didn't increase, and so basically how the tooltip read is that you would have a dot on you that was supposed to increase as you got more stacks. That didn't work at all. Basically, you were taking like M0 level damage from that dot of Feeling of Superiority. It was pretty fake. And the damage healing amp that was attached to it was not supposed to scale at all, and that was getting amped every single stack you got, and that was a mistake. And so you were doing, 500% bonus damage or 500% bonus healing and taking 0 additional damage. So they changed it to functionally work correctly.
So now it is dangerous to hold the buff, right? As a DPS, especially.
Yes.
I haven't actually done that boss this week yet.
Well, we held it. It's not dangerous to hold it. I held it to like 15 and it was still fine.
So,
but you could tell, were you taken out pretty hard?
I was taking more damage, but the boss has been nerfed. Similar to other fights, it got like compensatory nerfs to make sure that it was relatively similar power level.
Yeah, that's good.
They also, I think we maybe covered this last week, but the Court of Stars last boss now has purple lines on its slashy slash. So much.
No, last week we complained about that, and the day after they fixed it.
Wow. Okay. Then also Herja's Sanctify orbs have also been recolored.
Those are so much better. I think I like that one more than the Melandris change. The Herja balls, I think the hitbox is actually smaller because the animation's smaller. Because like before, the like rotating bolas, whatever they were, I swear they had a bigger hitbox. Like if you got too near one, you get hit. Whereas these orbs, you can just sidestep a little bit slower.
Yeah, sometimes it felt kind of unfair when you got hit by the old ones, but now I think probably whether the hitbox is bigger or smaller or whatever, it's now more accurate to the model as well, which is always really nice.
Something we called out last week as well, Raging Tempest balls got changed to now work correctly, which ended up functionally being a a slight buff to the boss on anything above a 20 and a slight nerf to the boss on anything below a 20, fight feels fine. Honestly, like we talked about the nerfs to that fight last week. Post nerf, the fight feels pretty reasonable.
Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, the first boss was giving count for the ads that it spawned. No longer is doing that. Okay, fair enough. Understandable. They also fixed Maximus Trash to give count as well, which, understandable. I actually would kind of prefer, like, it would be easier as a player if all required mobs didn't give count, right? Like, any mob that's required for beating a dungeon, giving count, it's something they have in so that you feel good about killing them, right? But it actually does make, like, it makes it harder because you have to remember all those things. Like Court of Stars, right? The fact that the last mini-boss now gives count, right, is, you have to kill that thing anyways, right? The fact that it gives count just means now you have to know how much count it gives before you go up there, right?
It's like
that's a decent idea, but I think, like, think about Nokud, right? You step into Nokud and you kill 16 required packs to spawn all the bosses, and you finally kill the first not required pack, and you go from 0% to 30% trash or something.
Well, so now they've just standardized it so that, like, anytime you're killing any non-boss enemy, you're getting count out of the exchange, right? And I do think that's a fine standardization. It just is, like, also true that Court of Stars used to be easier because you used to be at 100% after the second boss, right? And now it's like, okay, so that last guy give 12 counts, give 11, to give 13?
12.
12.
I had that argument in my head yesterday.
Yeah.
It's like the question that Eddie Undat had like a few weeks back, where it's like, should we even have these packs in the game that force spawn the boss like that we were required to do?
Yeah, I think we settled on, we all think it's fine every once in a while. Like, maybe not every single dungeon. It seems like all these new dungeons have that problem.
Even the old dungeons have even the old dungeons have the same thing. Like Court having it for Melandris and the second boss to Elixir Flame Wreath.
Yeah, I think it does make sense in most of the places where it's used, though. I don't know.
I think it's okay.
I do feel like Nokud maybe has a little bit much of it, where it's like a little bit too. But even in Nokud, you still have to get like 50% of your count from non-required mobs. I don't know. There's still a lot of choice in that dungeon.
Okay, I have a question for Trell. We talked about this a couple times on our like weekly Wowhead video. Do you think that Blizzard should/will ever buff dungeons?
Sometimes I think they should, but I don't think they will once it's a certain amount of time into the patch, unless it's like a small buff, like a bug fix buff, like we saw this week. I think I heard like the philosophy is it's easier to tune down so that people don't get like I don't know the psychological reasoning behind it, but I think it's easier on the community if it's tuned down rather than tuned up really hard.
Yeah. So what do you think that Blizzard should do about Court of Stars and Shadowmoon Burial Grounds currently? And do you think that it's okay with the dungeon parity?
I don't know. I mean, that was something that I think should have been done on beta. And like I said, I don't think they're gonna do any huge buffs and like cut the timer by 3 minutes or whatever. Yeah, they're definitely outliers though. They're by far the easiest. Kind
of the conclusion Dragonus I've come to a couple times now. I think that they just like moving forward, like we're getting new dungeons next season. They need to be very careful to make sure we don't have this happen again, where it's like, oh my god. It's weird because it's happening in the other direction. Normally, whenever you have dungeons, you're like, damn, those are so fucking hard. I don't really want to zone into like the landmine hard dungeons. Like this season's like, these dungeons are free.
Yeah. Well, I think we've come full circle where all the really hard landmine dungeons get nerfed really early. Like that's actually a really good thing that's come out of the Blizzard tuning in the last two patches. They just get adjusted really fast, and it's great because now like you step into Azure Vault now as opposed to late on beta, and it's just a whole different dungeon. It's way more fun for everyone involved.
Agree.
Okay, yeah. So be interesting to see how that works going forward. Let's do tip of the week, and then we will go into our 4 remaining dungeons to talk about. My tip of the week is the Momentum Redistributor Boots. Tettles, you guys on this? The Momentum Redistributor Boots tech on? No? Okay. This is tech for Razagath, much like yours is.
We know about them, though.
Yeah. These are engineering Shadowlands Bind on Use 5-minute cooldown. And what it does is it causes you to, the next time you would take fall damage within the 10 seconds after you use this item, you take less fall damage, and the damage that you don't take is instead redistributed to whatever you land on. So having everybody in your raid use one of these things before you get knocked off of the first platform on Razagath means that you take less fall damage and you do some extra damage to the ruiner that you land on. So that's a little bit of tech. If you are interested in some of that, let me see. I'll see if I can pull up a log.
I was watching while you're doing that. I was watching Honestly do that strat, and I think their entire raid has them on one of the sides that they went to for the intermission, and they took the ad from 100% to 80% health just by landing on it.
Instant dollars also had the same thing. I don't think it takes it from 100 to 80%. I think it takes the shield off though.
Yeah.
Does it take the shield off pretty fast?
Maybe it was like 20% total damage or something.
Yeah. So here's a log of ours. This just has 6 people using it. Now, logs are kind of cursed on this fight because you can't always see the people on the other platform as you. But 6 people using it did almost a mil. Almost a mil to that ruiner when we landed without costing anything. All it does, and like, it means that you can't use something like charge or leap or whatever to take 0 fall damage. So I take a little bit of fall damage instead of none. But you know, I hit for 267k on the ad. So I don't know. I think it is worth for anybody who can. You do have to be an engineer to use it though. So if you don't want to move your professions around this expansion, I understand. All right.
I started as engineering and then I moved to herbalism for Court of Stars. And then it turns out that anybody can use the flower in Court of Stars now. I forgot that was added in late Legion, I think. So now I'm wishing I was engineering again.
With the flower?
Yeah, the bloom.
Wait, anybody can use that?
Yeah, I think you just have to be cooking or something now.
It's herbal. Wait, what the?
Yeah, it's herbalism druid, but I think anyone can do it because of cooking.
I'm gonna say this. What exactly is the food buff?
The food buff, the Nightshade refreshments, isn't that like
max health? I think.
Yeah, max health, 10%.
No. What are the recs for it?
Oh, I think it's also cooking.
Yeah.
I don't have cooking, and I've always been able to click it for literally as long as I've played.
Anyone, I don't even know.
Is it cooking druid? Not everybody can click it.
Maybe it's like Tauren or something, or High Mat. I don't know.
I've been like 100 different races. I don't even know what the fuck it is.
Beats me. Are you sure you're not like Legion cooking?
I don't have cooking.
Okay. You don't have cooking.
They definitely added some like more lenient requirements because the flower used to be strictly druid herbalism and anybody can click the flower now. So I think cooking is the food is probably the same way.
So I have like rank 1 cooking or shit.
All right, Terrell, what is your tip of the week?
Mine is about Enchanted Dust. This is a new thing this expansion, right? Do enchanters make it?
This is the thing for Razagath?
Is this from
it's
Warlords?
It's Draenor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was new. Okay, well, anyway. Enchanted Dust, really nice to have for huge bosses with models that you need to see through to see your feet. Because, like, on Mythic Razagath or Heroic Razagath even, if you're having trouble just seeing through her ginormous wings, then you can use this item to, like, make her transparent every other second while she's not casting something.
Yeah.
If the boss isn't dusted within, like, 30 seconds of pulling, I notice that I'm, like, angling my camera really weird, and I'm like, I can't see shit.
Yeah, it's 5 minute. It lasts 5 minutes. It takes a global and it aggroes the boss. So you're gonna need somebody to do it on pull and then at the start of P2 and then potentially at the start of P3 if they can give up that damage global.
I'd like to shout out our holy paladin who is taken upon himself to dust the boss for us.
Yeah,
our Vengeance DH is doing it. We have a weak aura set up and everything.
Absolutely.
And this is also good for like the bird boss and Algathar. You can do the same thing. It's hard to see the swirlies under your feet for real.
All right, Tettles, let's take a look at your clip of the week, which I have seen this clip. This is a banger clip here. Let's
Oh yes.
So I know why this happened. I've had this happen to me before. Not exactly like this. So if you get stunned midair by thundering, you go all the way back up to the top of Azure Vault and then come back down to the book. I've never seen what follows happen in this clip. What proceeds to follow? Like normally, you just kind of land here, but for some,
my favorite's when he starts turning right here as a turn like sideways moon kid.
Going back up. I don't know why he's going back up again.
Oh,
He's screaming. They depleted this key by 14 seconds, by the way.
yeah.
He's in
Oh,
the air for like what 30 plus seconds.
absolutely
something.
incredible.
100% because of the bug.
This is why you jump down.
Whew. That one might be one of the best clips. That I think that might have a clip of the expansion contention already.
That's a good clip.
It is a good clip. Also, love Thundering making an appearance there. All is part of all bad in M+. I hate Thundering. Hate it so much. All right. Let's talk about Legacy Dungeons. Which, I guess not Legacy Dungeons, but the 4 Legacy Dungeons that are in this season. We will begin with Halls of Valor. The first thing about Halls of Valor that a lot of people kind of notice is that the timer in here, which was 45 minutes in Legion, is now 38 minutes. How have you guys been feeling about this timer, and how aggressively do you think it makes you have to pull this dungeon in order to achieve victory?
You can feel this.
I think the timer is better. I think 45 was too much. I think it's pretty tight compared to most dungeons now, especially like Court and Shadowmoon, but they're also outliers. So I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the timer. As an experienced player, I think it's okay. I think for the general public going into halls, it's a very difficult dungeon, especially with some changes that they made. And it's probably one of the harder ones to time, especially to pug.
I tend to agree, and I think that, at least from my experience, I've seen people complain about the timer in Halls of Valor. I think the timer is an issue if you're not double pulling a couple of packs in particular.
Yeah, exactly.
There are, like, the Shield Maiden Purifier, that thing should always be double pulled. You can honestly even like triple pull that into one of the hallway packs if you're feeling a bit ballsy, but you don't necessarily have to. And then I think that like multiple of the Great Hall packs need to be doubled up pretty consistently for your timer to be lenient. Then on top of that, there's like a brew and stuff like that. All of those things make it, like, at least at a high level, a lot more reasonable of a timer. But if you're not doing that, then yeah, you can run into some issues if your damage isn't like insane.
Pulling all the bison and all the bears in one pull. That's a new meta pull, by the way.
Wait, people are bull gaming?
Yeah, every bull and every bear in one pull.
I'm in. Actually,
It's actually really fun.
I'm actually down for that, but that's a tank killer, by the way.
It's like, it's more like a melee.
Yeah.
Killer. Well, it's a tank killer too if you don't kite well, but yeah. But all this to say, every single one of those pulls we just described that you double up on are really, really difficult without insane coordination. Like all the ones in the banquet hall have 5 required kicks, or someone's going to die on Fort 20. You know, the bear bison pull combo is really, really difficult unless your tank's insane. And then the shield maiden pull, if you have 5 shield maidens in one pull plus a required kick plus a giant beam frontal, that is really difficult for the average group, and all the melee players will die, and probably the ranged players as well eventually to the beam.
I mean, you just need to be aware, like as a melee on those pulls, you just need to be really aware of any pack that has a shield maiden in it. Like any pack that has a shield maiden in it, you are in danger of dying.
Yeah, that's been the biggest challenge for halls, I think, because the Herja area was the only spot where shield maidens were in Legion, and then late in the beta cycle, a shield maiden just got plopped on top of every pack in the banquet hall pretty much. That is really difficult.
I also forgot the Herja mini bosses. If you don't double up the Herja mini bosses, you're also forfeiting like 45 seconds. There's just easy ways to lose, 50 seconds per pack if you're not either doubling it up or doing something that's like a more traditional route.
Triple pulling the start is pretty common at the high level. That's actually a really hard pull too.
Yeah, pull it all with lust at the top of the dungeon, right? Every single mob before Heimdall.
It's hard for everybody that aren't Prot Warriors.
Yeah.
If you're Prot Warrior, it's an average day.
Yeah, I did that on my DK, and I was like, oh, I did this on my Warrior, no problem. I hopped on my DK, perked within the first 5 seconds of the pull, and I was like, oh, yeah, these guys hit hard.
Yeah, can't have a full uptime rune weapon as well, right? So as soon as that thing goes down, you go too. Very very fun pull. Very fun pull for shield block. So here's some footage of you doubling up the mini boss and the mini bosses.
Oh.
Is there timing you need to be aware of when you do these?
Not this timing.
Not this timing.
So
the moment the bubble appears, basically, and he starts his like second cast where he actually does damage with Eye of the Storm, that's when you want to pull the Sanctify guy.
Yeah, it's just like the moment the bubbles plop down, the tank or a range can just like tag the dude from far, and it's fine. What
Yeah.
they did here.
Yeah.
So another thing that you actually do need to know is the longer that these mobs are alive, the more the closer the Sanctify gets to the circle, to the point where if you get to the third Sanctify, it may overlap with the circle a little bit. So sometimes you want to actually DPS down the mob through the first or the second Eye of the Storm, depending on how long he's going to live for before you pull the second guy into him.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, depends a little bit on keystone level there.
Mhm.
Okay. How about the bosses themselves? These bosses in Halls of Valor, I would say some of the hardest out there, kind of average boss difficulty level, right? I think Herja is the one that back in Legion was the hardest, although they've made a lot of quality of life changes to that. Although they've also made, it feels like Arcing Bolt comes out a lot faster now than it used to, even though it's doing less damage.
It's instant cast now. She doesn't even show she's casting it.
Yeah.
It's that and Expel Light are just, they just happen, and you're like, oh crap! But now I'm about to be blasted with a ton of damage. I think hers is harder in a different way because of that. She's still a really hard boss, but she's just a different boss now, I'd say.
I do think there's some bad luck protection though on getting the arc lightning with the Expel Light now. I don't think you're able to get like both at once.
True. Yeah.
Which you were in Legion, which would one tap you.
Yeah, you can still get both if you play the complicated middle strat.
Yeah. So Trell, what? Yeah, don't do that. So Trell, what exactly do you think? Were you thinking about like Heimdall and Herja? Like, is there anything really to know about either? I think that like Heimdall's pretty free, and Herja you just need to know how to rotate defensives well.
Yeah, Herja you gotta know like what your healer is going to use for each Eye of the Storm. You got to know when to use your own defensives. You can like double up defensives if you have a bunch, like Windwalkers do. And like you always want to use your health pot instead of a defensive sometimes if you're running dry or something as well. As a tank, you got to have something huge for every tank beam. And every once in a while, you also have to be prepared for her to beam you on pull. There's a chance that she walks to you to the storm side and she just instantly beams you. But I think it's like every 30 seconds you're getting a beam-ish. So just have a rotation for that.
Yeah, this is another one of those things where you just need to kind of have a plan for each one. Remember, if you are getting scared, usually your healer will have an external of some kind, so call for that if you are looking at your buttons and realize you don't have any of them. All right. How about moving towards the Fenrir area? We talked about the possibility of doing all of the animals all together, the bulls and the bears. But how about that first dragon, which now kind of automatically pulls if you're not careful? Do you guys think how do you skip it, and is it worth
you
skipping?
can skip it if everyone holds still until the dragon finishes his little fly up RP and eats the stag, then you can walk by him after that. But if anyone moves up at all, it's basically going to auto aggro. And you can skip it, but it's kind of tight. You have to have like a warlock gate on the way back, but you can just jump past it on the right side on the way down if you want. And honestly, like I think every route has pretty much been pulling it. It's you kind of just add mobs elsewhere, and you can pull the dragon into like 3 bison if you want to.
Okay. How about Fenrir itself? Do you guys like pulling the wolves before Fenrir, or leaving those and just doing the boss in the cave?
On God, fuck those wolves. The issue with the wolves, at least in my opinion, is like they're not very efficient. So on the upside, if you're doing like a normal key, so say you're doing like a 60 or whatever, right? I would recommend pulling the wolves because it gives you more space. Yeah. If you're doing like a high level key, you don't really want to fuck with these wolves because they're very inefficient. You're never going to pull more than 3 at once. You can pull 3 into the front end of the boss, and it's probably fine if you have all of your offensive CDs. But they're very dangerous because 1, they leap on players, and you have to have your players loosely spread most of the time. And 2, they have like a pretty big tank hit. And like if you pull more than 3 at once, they start buffing up one another because they have like an invisible buff that increases their damage dealt. That's going to fuck your tank.
Yeah, it does like a 20% damage amp on every one of their abilities per wolf nearby.
Yes.
And if you're not a prot warrior, and even prot warriors can struggle, if you pull more than 2 wolves, you're probably going to instantly get one shot without something large defensive wise.
I think that this boss in general is one where you have to be like super, super careful. I think the biggest thing is like something that people don't know is that you can dodge the leap from Fenrir, and it works very similar to Cujo jump, where the person that is the furthest out will get targeted first. And you can see Trell being the furthest player there, and he flying serpent kicks away from Fenrir, and that allows him to dodge the first leap onto him and not get the bleed. Alternatively, you could use things like Rogue Vanish. Greater Invis is also great for this. Nelf, like you could Shadow Meld it as well. And if you're the first person targeted and you like Nelf while he's midair, he will first not bleed you and second not bleed anybody else.
Yeah, the secret hack to this boss is having an Outlaw Rogue because they can vanish every single one of the leaps if they get good rolls. And if they don't get rolls, they can vanish like every other pretty predictably, I think.
Yeah, I think
that just stops that stops all bleeds completely from the fight going out if you do it right.
They have to hold true bearing, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
and you can, like we mentioned, you can also do this with Greater Invis and Shadow Meld because they're instant cast vanish abilities, whereas Feign Death and normal Mage Invis don't work as well because they have like a variable fade time, or a longer fade time, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk about the brew trick, the brew tech. How does this work, and what's the goal here?
So we did mention the 4 king strat last week, right, with the brews.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is fixed now. So now you can only do what was like the meta in Legion, where you just brewed 1 king, and what you do is you talk to one, probably the far left king, or this looks like they did the far right king, and this is this Fem.
Yeah, this is Fem TV.
Yeah, Fem knows all about this, but you talk to 1 king and someone brews the other king at the same time, and then you drag the king over to get them to start brawling. And that just like makes them skip part of their RP. So as soon as they stop brawling, you can click the king that was brewed, and then he'll get in combat like 2 seconds later.
Yeah, but they fixed this?
They fixed the 4 king part, but you can still do 2 and then 2 with this.
I think
is
so.
It 4 king part of the achievement for this dungeon? Is it having all 4 kings active at once the meta achieve?
Oh, I don't know. I had no idea.
Didn't fix it then. Who knows?
I just heard that somewhere. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
This is one of those things where people say it's fixed when they screw it up as well.
So, but like if you want like a good tip for how to do it too, is like you need to make sure that you're like spam clicking them the moment that the brew is fading. And so like what I like to do is I actually like to put them on like focus. I like to assign them out in advance, and I like to put mine on focus frame, and I like to slam like interact with mouse over on my focus frame. And so like the moment that the brew expires, I can insta click them, and then like my big wigs will click through the prompt and activate them insta.
Yeah, and there's like a really good way to coordinate this. So like you have your whole group get 3 brews right on the way up to the bridge. Everyone clicks the brews at the same time. They run up the bridge, and this is all assuming this still works. And then when everyone's like entering Odin's room, finally, you do like a 10-second bull timer, and then the tank starts on like the far side on one of the kings. At second 6 on the timer, the first person throws the brew at the closest side to the tank. At second 4, the next person throws, and then 2, same thing. And then you slowly drag it so that they have like 2 seconds between all of them finishing their RP. So it's really easy to just coordinate who clicks which king, and then it's pretty consistent that way.
That sounds way easier. Way easier.
Fem has a good clip on this too, if we can find it.
Yeah, that was when we just played the
okay. Yeah.
Lepan had a good one as well.
Maybe it was Lepan's that did the timer, but yeah, both those ways work for sure.
Yeah, you see a pull timer comes out, and then do the brew. How about Skovald and Odin? Anything worth mentioning on these bosses?
Tuttle, Skovald?
Skovald, make sure your tank doesn't use any channeled abilities. Otherwise, you're going to wipe during the shield. If you channel an ability,
any manic grief torch users,
any grief torch. I think if they are fell deving as well, I'm not 100% sure, but I have suspicion that fell dev probably is gonna fuck you. If they channel Blood Drinker, if Blood DK still has that or uses that, they can also fucking wipe you.
Mm-hmm. Brewmaster, you can't press Spinning Crane Kick, Expel Harm for some reason.
Yeah.
Chi Burst, Zen Med. There might be one other I'm not thinking of, but you got to be really careful on that fight.
You can give it to your healer if that's the case. Like you can forfeit the shield to your healer if all of your damage is based around casting. That is something you can do.
And then how about Odin? How do you handle the Odin fight?
I think the big deal. Okay, so actually, first off, triple spear whenever they come down out of the sky is actually starting to get really dangerous. So you need to make sure that you're starting to rotate defensives. Once he gets to after the second marks come through, he starts doing triple spears. You need to be very scared there. especially if you're not topped.
And there's 2 that come down like within 10 seconds of each other. So if you have like a longer than 10-second DR, like Fort Brew, that's a really good spot to use it so you can cover 2 spear sets.
I think beyond that, I like to center up the boss before the marks come out. And so with the boss centered, it allows you to actually get to the marks fast, because a big mistake that I see people do is they don't recenter the boss after you get the circle. And that kind of pushes you to a weird side. And then if you get like a far side mark, you're like either burning your health potion or potentially dying on this fight, which, dying with your mark, not great.
Yeah, it's good to have like, if you can have some kind of defensive or health pot that you can dedicate to getting the mark to make sure that you live to get to your rune. Because as soon as you get to your rune, you get full healed. That's something that's good on that fight. And then you just rotate everything else for the spears, basically.
I agree.
Yeah, I think one thing about that fight as well is when the ads spawn, you don't actually want to bring them all the way under Odin instantly. Like, I would say like insta-kicking or gripping them under Odin or whatever can actually be a bait, because then you're forced to run away when he does the big circle. So you want it like halfway. You want to kind of leave it halfway away from Odin, and then everybody can run in that direction when you all get gripped in, and you can kick it on the way out and bring it with you.
That's a good tip. It's also good to just use the ad as like a direction to go out of the circle marker. Like, you just go toward the ad, and that way you're going to be in a good spot every time.
Yeah.
Save range kicks as well, because like if you get stuck in the middle, you want to be kicking him out of like the circle as opposed to using range kicks instantly.
All right, let's talk about Temple of the Jade Serpent. Do you guys like starting in this dungeon by going right or left?
I like going left. It has a good lust either way going left. Because like on 4 weeks, you can do a double pull, maybe even a triple if you're crazy, and lust it. And then your next lust will be up for like second boss or something, which is good either way.
People are tripling those droplets.
Yeah, well, they do like the first little pack plus the Ellie plus a second Ellie or something.
Plus a second Ellie?
Yeah, sometimes I see
that. You got Bloodlust. You got Bloodlust.
That is not the triple I was thinking.
That's crazy. I would not recommend that.
I would not recommend that. I think that like a double is fairly common, and with lust, you're kind of able to limp through saying "just heal me" and stand in every single one of the Ellie casts.
Yeah, you can line the Ellie cast too. That's pretty big in high keys.
Yeah, but I think the big thing is like the water speakers generally in the left side are the most dangerous part. But like the big thing is like the tidal burst. You can just use stops on the tidal burst. So any stop that your group has, so say like you gouge it or whatever, it won't recast that tidal burst, and then that'll allow you to save your kicks for the Hydro Lances.
Yeah, that's really important, especially on the double Hydromancer pull. Is that what they're called? Hydromancers?
The water speakers?
Something.
Water. Yeah. I think it's water speaker.
They cast Hydro Lance,
water
right?
speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the pull of 2 water speakers, you need to kick twice on both of them and then wait and just stop their tidal burst at the last second so that you can let kicks recharge during that cast. And it's like, you usually want to put like tank and arranged on the left one or something, and then the 2 melee players on the right one, as an example.
Apparently going right is also bad because you have to wait for Wise Mary to drop combat before continuing. Otherwise, it'll fuck up your whole entire lockout. Did you guys hear about this? There's a bug with the bug with the Jade Serpent lockout where
if you pull a pack too fast after you kill that boss, you just never get credit for killing the boss. Like, it skips the combat drop or something.
Yeah, it's some weird shit like that. So apparently going right's bad.
Interesting. Okay. Let's talk about Wise Mari, the first boss over on the left.
I've brought weak auras for show and tell today.
Yes. All right. So do you want to put these in chat or something, and we'll have them in the description below as well?
So basically what these are what is that? Both of these are okay. So that's the wash away one. So during this wash away cast, whenever she does like the spin water, this puts like a bar on your screen with like white line tickers on them, and those tickers indicate whenever the water is going to explode. And then the other one is just for like the natural water that happens during the fight after every single one of the circle debuffs come out. Yeah. These weak auras bang.
I think if you're using reloads, just Dragonflight dungeons or whatever, or is that reloads? The Dragonflight dungeons, I think it's relo.
Relo has a Dragonflight one.
I think that has these weak auras or ones with similar functionality in there as well. But yeah, definitely good to have a weak aura for how that water works, because the visual is not particularly good, and the weak aura is very precise. So good call on that one. All right, let's talk about something kind of more meta about this dungeon, which is that in general there are just a boatload of tank slams from trash, right? Like tank abilities that will kill you: Dark Claw,
Yeah.
Hateful Gaze, Rising Sun Kick, Peck, the entire third boss encounter, the fire and the Jade Fire slams. Those things are
This place
wild.
is like almost pure magic damage for tanks. It's nuts. I think it's the highest percentage of magic to physical damage we've had in a very long time. And all these tank busters we're talking about, like the Hateful Gaze or whatever it's called, the Dark Claw, Rising Sun Kick from the monk mobs, they're all like 7 to 10 second frequencies on every mob. And it's brutal. Like on 4th, they hit you for like 60 to 80% of your health, depending on the key level you're doing. And so you got to have either a defensive rolling all the time for all those hits, or you can stop them in some way, like knocking them prevents them usually. Stuns work, and they don't recast right away either. You can outrange quite a few of them if you have a leap or a roll of some sort. But yeah, they're pretty rough.
You guys didn't talk about the beetle.
Yeah, the Golden Beetle.
Yeah, that's the same thing. You should probably try to stun its cast, but it's going to hit you really hard, and it reduces your max health stacking every time it hits you.
It also anytime it gets that shield up on itself, it also explodes doing damage. And if that combos with the Tiger Leap, you die.
All right,
Sure.
how about Strife and Peril? The traditionally the second boss. If you go left first, you go right second. You find Strife and Peril. We talked about this buff being hot fixed, being this boss being sort of nerfed, sort of bug fixed, sort of buffed, depending on what you were doing with it before. What is the strat for handling this encounter safely?
There's been some conflicting opinions, and I think they're the same strats still after the nerfs. The nerfs were good. I'm glad they finally fixed that fight. But
Yeah.
what we've been doing that we found the safest is like starting on the left one that gives you the buff. So that's why you start on the left, and then you have the buff the rest of the fight on one player or another. But you let him go to 6 stacks, and then you swap, and everyone swaps at the same time, so he instantly drops his stacks, and then you just rinse and repeat for the rest of the fight until they die.
So Trell, do tell, what stacks up the boss sometimes?
So it's any kind of direct damage, and then sometimes your passive cleave also can put stacks on the boss. So every class just kind of has to know which abilities put stacks on the other target when they press them. So like I figured out that as Windwalker, I can actually stand between them, and I can cleave with Blackout Kick, and it does not apply stacks. So I just do like a bunch of 2-target damage for free. And I'm sure other classes have a lot of
Yeah.
that, but like I think
Moonkin's
most thought classes can't do that.
Moonkin's Twin Moons like fucking stack it up every single time, but you can Starfall, for example, to fucking not cleave it. Demon Hunter, I think I-Beam will stack it up, but if they're blade dancing or death sweeping, it won't. It's kind of
Interesting.
similar. It's kind of similar to how Adderus and Aspects worked back in
Yeah. The other temple.
the other
Yeah.
temple. Yeah. That
I was
temple
thinking about that.
that temple was beans.
I remember tanking one of those bosses against the other one so that we could cleave, but everyone had to like really know their class. And then I had to like turn off rushing Jade because I was playing Brewmaster, and I would just have my back to him and did no damage.
God, I love Fire Mage.
Yeah, because the Ignite spread perfectly back when that did damage. They buffed Ignite a lot the last couple of weeks, so it's sort of doing damage again. All right, let's talk about the third boss, which, as we said, deals tremendous damage to the tank. There used to be a strat where you could tank this sort of near the stairs as well to remove how much your DPS had to dodge. Can't do that anymore. They fixed that. But how do you live this as a tank, Terrell?
Yeah, the third boss is pretty rough. You have to have something big for every single hit in P2. P2 is also just like prime candidate for lust if you know it's gonna be hard for your group. P1's not so bad. You take like a watered down version of the hit, and then you get to P2 at 70%, and that's when you start rotating all your stuff. DKs really don't have a problem with this. You can just Death Strike twice after every hit, and then you run out of the circle and you're fine. But I think most tanks, if they don't have something big, they're gonna die, basically.
Yeah, I would say the big news is definitely save your cooldowns for P2, save your defensives as a tank for P2. The P1 damage is a lot lower. Interestingly, you can reflect the P1 Serpent Strike. You can't reflect the P2 Jade Serpent Strike, so you do still want to use reflect to reduce the incoming damage of it, but you don't get to entirely mitigate it that way.
What's the deal with this fight on non-warrior tank?
On non-warrior tank, I would say it's easier on DK. It's probably
Okay.
easier on DH as well. I would guess harder on Bear.
I think Bear probably struggles the most because it
Yeah.
doesn't have a ton of big DRCDs like the other tanks do at this point. Brew, I don't think it's that bad. I don't know. I haven't really played Brew on it yet. I'm going to soon, but I think Brew has an insane amount of tools for it, and you also have a big self heal after, like DK.
Yeah. You can
to get out
probably
of the-
Celestial every other, right? And then you've got what, Fort Brew for one, Dampen for another, Diffuse for another, Diffuse like I think
Yeah.
I think Brew
Mhm.
would survive through that whole phase pretty unscathed.
Assuming you're not getting like 8.
Yeah, assuming you're not getting to
Yeah.
although even if you do, like Brew has so many coolies, and Celestial Brew every other probably.
Yeah, Zenmed.
Yeah,
And, like the problem with this boss, honestly, besides that, is just running out of the circle and then not dying to a wave that spawns directly on your character. That's the really hard part. Like until you've had a few reps in that dungeon, you're probably going to die to it as melee. Until you know like all the exact times you got to run out of the circle and then be prepared to strafe immediately.
yeah. All right, then we get some beautiful trash towards the the very end of the dungeon. That one of our questions that we collected for our episode on Twitter from Zexia said, "Tips and tricks for the last packs of Temple of Jade Serpent. Feels incredibly dangerous." I guess this is just the last pack in particular, the Shaw one. To stay in the pool for more than 10 seconds, then I have to kite. Then while kiting, it's tricky to pick up aggro on the spawned ads that end up meleeing the healer or other DPS. So yeah, there's a couple of packs of trash that aren't too bad. You know, that you can either one pull or even potentially double pull some of those first 3 ones in front, and then there's that 5 pack of Shaw in the back that is really nasty. How solve?
So this trash was interesting. The first time we walked in on day 1 of Mythic Plus, it just appeared there because it was never on beta, and we were all just like, "What the hell happened here?"
Cursed. It was cursed.
Yeah.
But it's good because otherwise this dungeon would have been just like Shadowmoon and Court, where it was just super free on the timer, and it was like 4 or 5 minutes easier than any other dungeon. But yeah, the way you deal with this trash is like every pack is got, or there's 2 packs that have double sets of casters, just like that pack before Wise Mari. So you just treat those packs the same way, where you assign 2 people to one ad and 2 people to the other, and then use stops on the stoppable abilities instead of kicks, basically. The Mistweaver is the same way. So like the Mistweaver will start channeling her thing, and that's the burn target. And any pull with the Mistweaver, they're super dangerous. But as soon as she starts channeling her mist on someone, you can use a grip or a stop or a knock of some sort, and she'll stop it for like 3 or 4 seconds before requeuing.
Okay, and then how about the last boss itself? Obviously, this boss is quite a bit easier if you have Warlocks, Mass Dispel. That's kind of it, I guess. Dwarves and immunes and stuff.
We did it this week. It's way easier now, but it's way easier now to do it the intended way. So what we saw last week, like at even time of recording this, was like they had just nerfed the last boss of Jade Serpent. You need to be very diligent about rotating defensives if you're going to be holding the buff for any extended period of time. Obviously, if you have a Mass Dispel or a Warlock in your group, it's really easy. I don't think you need to double heal this boss anymore.
You shouldn't have to.
I don't think you do.
I think in really, really high keys, people are still doing it because it just reduces all risk. And that way you can use your defensives in the intermissions instead, because you actually need them there. The ads melee is super hard. But the thing is, like, as long as the healer dispels one of the debuffs instantly, or someone immunes it instantly and they dispel the other, that way everyone knows what's going on, and the person that has the remaining debuff, if they have one, can press something and just get healed through it and probably live.
All right, let's talk about Court of Stars. Court of Stars.
Sorry.
Oh,
before we go to Court, one more thing about that final trash pack before the boss. That was the Twitter question.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to burn the ad that casts the
Haunting Shaw.
Ad. Yeah, the Haunting Shaw, because that's the only one that has a fervent strike where they'll hit a random melee when you're out of the group. Because you probably do have to kite once spell block or some other huge defensive ends, and then ideally you have one more defensive so that you can run back in, get threat on the spawning ads at least once, and then just continue kiting after that. Or like maybe you hold an AoE stun while you run in, get threat, and then go back out.
Or Ravager in.
It's the only mob in like all of any dungeon that has a fervent. I don't think it's I doubt it's intended to even have a fervent, right?
I think they tried to fix it, but some mobs still fervent every now and then. Yeah, that one's the biggest culprit though.
All right, let's talk about Court of Stars, the dungeon that We've just got Quarter Stars and Shadowmoon Burial Grounds left. This is like when you do exclamation point keys or slash key and you see this in your group, it's happy times. It's prosperity. Items are going to be dropping. Score is going to be going up.
Dude, I literally went and talked to the panda and got my key for the week this week.
Oh.
And it was Quarter Stars 24, and Frosty was in my group. He goes, "Oh my god, we high rolled."
Yeah, that's a great news. Prosperity in the kingdom. So in Quarter Stars, you've still got the dungeon buffs that do matter in this place. The biggest ones are no longer the engineering orb. That doesn't matter like it did back in Legion. You can skip it. It doesn't really do anything anymore. But you want the ones that give you damage, healing, health, crit, or whatever, those reduced damage taken. All those ones are good later in the dungeon. So if you're in a high key group, you do want to take some time to look at what professions or whatever will get you access to one of those that you don't already have. Obviously not something to worry about if you're pugging or whatever. But if you are in a coordinated group, make sure to get those for yourself.
This is an old map. Maybe somebody has a link to a completely updated map. This one's like mostly correct.
Yeah, let me pull up the old map here. Definitely, they've added some new sources of some of these different buffs. But
that's the issue. Is like some of them have new things attached to them. Is like the big thing.
Oh, on my YouTube video on this place, I did have two links, like a map, and then also like a table with every buff in the dungeon and what they do, what they give the party, and what people can use the buffs as well. I can find that at some point too. But
yeah, go check out youtube.com/Trelsky for that. Everybody.
Maybe that'd be good. Maybe that'd be good to show now. I don't even know if is it good to show now, you think?
Yeah, probably the table.
All right, I will go hunt for it while we continue here.
Okay, so I mean, in general, the dungeon buffs do matter. They matter less than they did in Legion because a lot of them have been nerfed down. Contrary to what I said last week, apparently the Quarter Stars food buff got nerfed from 25% HP to 10, but a lot of the buffs have been nerfed, at least in some capacity, where the engineering orb now no longer like completely deactivates the constructs. It stuns them every so often, makes them take bonus damage. There's some different stuff, and I mean, look, there are some specific combinations of buffs that you can get, right?
Yeah, and sometimes you can definitely high roll and get like max health and 5% DR, or max health and 10% haste. That's a really good combo. Or 10% damage straight up is maybe even better, arguably.
Yeah, the max health and damage taken, the double defensive one is really powerful, although it's bad for the timer, obviously, but it's really good for like beating a key at a high level or beating a boss that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the timer's not usually an issue unless it's like a under-geared group for some reason, but yeah, you definitely want the DRs.
Obviously you can't choose what you get though, so the main thing is just making sure like, hey, our group doesn't have we don't have a way to use the bazaar goods. I'll go leatherworking, right? And now we can use that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Or especially like the trap, play blacksmith.
I have blacksmith on my druid again.
Oh yeah. Just like Legion.
Legion.
I don't play the hunter very often, so it's like I'm blacksmithing, may as well.
Back home.
It was either blacksmithing or JC, man.
So start of dungeon, any pull that involves a construct, you need kind of two kicks for it, right? You need to kick charging station if there's any other mobs in the pull, and you need to kick suppress unless the person is fainting or vanishing or whatever.
Is it melee? Or is it 3?
Yeah, it's barely 2 meleeable if you kick late. Or if you have like a DK on the charging station that has like a 12-second kick or a shaman. But yeah, you can do it with any 2 melee, but it's very tight. But I'd rather people just do 3 kicks to be safe. And like, there's rarely anything else you have to kick at the same time as a construct, right? Unless you do the cursed bridge pull or the pull by the second boss that nobody should do.
Technically, suppress can be dispelled by your healer as well. If you want to let that go off for like half a second.
True.
But I feel like every single time I get suppressed, I don't know if I've ever been dispelled from it.
Now, do you guys like getting count from the start of the dungeon by going down to the docks area, or do you prefer getting it later in the dungeon or from going a more direct path?
I like the dock. I think the dock is really. I think it's really efficient count for time. For most, okay. So if I'm doing this in the high key, I think that you do the dock whenever somebody is running through and opening up the gate. If I'm doing the dock in a pug, I think I would rather like directly go left after the first pull of the dungeon and do the dock, and then just kind of hold W through the key because I don't care as much about my time in the dungeon.
Yeah, I think it's also reasonable, especially in a pug, to just kind of not go dock and just hold W through the dungeon usually, because you're probably not going to deplete unless you die, and you usually, you're going to pull a bunch of stuff at the end of the dungeon anyways, and get count over there. But yeah,
Yeah,
In a
I mean the
in a
docks
pug,
essentially makes up for the like 3 or 4 pulls that your pugs will probably pull on accident. So
right.
like in a coordinated group, that's where your count comes from, and one dock pull instead of the 4 different pulls that happen on accident.
Yeah,
I will say though that a pull that I really do like is in the back right part of the courtyard area next to the first boss. Uh, there's a pack with 1 guard and a bunch of worms. Pull that shit. You want
yeah.
that?
That
That's
pack is
free.
that pack is very good.
We call that easy
Agreed.
money.
Free for a ranged player, yes. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, walk
You can
walk
Walk
away
out
from
of some
the ground.
swirlies and ground effects. But,
Walk
come on.
out of the ground effects.
Those
bro.
man worms
Walk-
die, and then 5 minutes later, there's like a swirly at their location. Like, come on.
That's what I'm saying.
to be
Walk
fair,
away.
The animations for the worms exploding were updated as well, and that's way easier now. But
Yeah.
before, like the meta is to pull that pack onto the first boss, which is my recommendation as well, probably. And all the swirlies tend to go right under all the debris on the first boss area, and so you couldn't see them at all. People
Don't
would just
tank
die
that
every
boss
time.
under the fucking pillows. Don't tank him on the pillows. Like get him out of there.
Yeah, other than
Yeah,
that
well,
first boss. Okay.
What's tricky about the first boss, this is the last thing probably, but is the space you have to tank him is really small, to be honest. There's only like one little 4x4 area where you're not going to encounter any patrols while tanking the boss there. And it's also not in the debris. And so that's why you see everybody tanking him in pretty much the same spot on streams, probably.
Oh, before we move on, what's the deal with the beacons? What's the deal with activating and deactivating the beacons, Trello? Is there any hot tip that you have? Because I know what I think that most people do, but like I wonder what you guys, or if you have like a hot opinion on what you should be doing about the beacons and what is their importance in the key?
Yeah, so I mean, it's good to leave one beacon not deactivated because it reduces the last boss spawning RP by like 30 seconds if you quote unquote fail the
Yeah.
stealth mission.
If
Basically.
you do all of the beacons, you need to have somebody guess incorrectly on one of the guests to skip that long RP at the end. Yeah. Otherwise, you will get the full story of the Legion expansion, and you'll get a cool achievement, but you will not time your keystone. So that is the trade-off.
It is 30 seconds long RP too.
But it's pretty free to leave the pillar up because, and I like to do the right one as you go into the first boss room. Because if you have a CC in the group like Paralyze or Trap, you can just instantly CC the ad that comes out and just ignore him the whole fight.
Yeah.
That beacon is also like nuclear fucking difficulty to deactivate.
Yeah, without pulling either of the 2 packs that are next to it. Yeah.
If you pull an arcane anomaly, by the way, just leave. Like that mob is so cringe. Don't pull that thing.
Okay, so you finished the first boss. What do we do now to activate efficiently the second boss, get our buffs quickly in the second area? Do you guys like going as a group up through? Or Tettles, you mentioned somebody opening the gate earlier. How does that work, and do you recommend that?
I would okay. So what I like to do is I like to send normally either like the healer or a rogue. It's been a rogue more often than not lately, but a healer or the rogue through the door, and basically they have to outrun the construct suppress. Otherwise, they're going to die to the construct suppress. By the way, and they have to outrun the first suppressed cast. And once they clear the door from the Inquisitor Imp pack, like once they pass that door that leads into the actual courtyard area, then the door back at like your spawn checkpoint opens up and the constructs that are blocking the way deactivate. Then you're able to walk through the courtyard there. I generally prefer to go that way. I think it's normally a little bit faster and you make up a little bit of time there, especially if you're sending a rogue too. If they're like a Belf or something like that, they can potentially click buffs that are on the other side and start you off with like lantern buff or whatnot. And like vanish off the pack. I think it's generally a little bit faster. It also sets you up for easier first couple of pulls because you don't need that like Inquisitor pull with the imps that's in the corner.
Now, in this area, I think one thing that's always really big to note is whenever you kill an Enforcer, 20 seconds later, another Enforcer will spawn. If you are fighting somewhere where that Enforcer could spawn, you could have an Enforcer spawn on you, and then you could die. So be aware of that and pull somewhere where the Enforcers do not spawn, and you'll have an easier and healthier life by a lot there.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to mention. So one good reason why you want to go to that other graveyard side and send someone to the RP to do the RP is because you kind of have to fight that Inquisitor and 3 imps if you go the normal
Yeah.
way, like the whole W route, and that's just like a waste of CDs because everyone's gonna have CDs after running through that entire area. And on the other side, you can do like an Inquisitor plus the mob with it, the Succubus, I think, plus the 8 or 9 imps that patrol around at the same time, and that's just a way better use of CDs because it just eliminates both those threats at the same time, and you're gonna have all your AOE stops at that time as well.
Yeah, you should have all your CDs and stuff like that. In addition to that, if you pull either the bridge pack with the Construct Inquisitor and the Mistress, or the patrol that's in front of the boss, those 2 packs are against the law. Stop pulling them. Like it's like 6 kicks or something. Stop pulling them.
Yeah, those are hard pulls.
Okay. Second boss, actually potentially one of the hardest in the dungeon at High Keys, right? This one and the last boss sort of trades off, and you generally only get to lust one of them. First of all, which boss do you guys prefer lusting? And second of all, how do you guys like to handle the... I mean, the second boss, I guess the strat is usually pretty straightforward. To me, I think the big thing is just making sure that you don't super overlap and send every single offensive on the first imp spawn and then have nothing for the second. But usually just if some people send some short cooldowns on pull, they're back for the second imp spawn.
I normally like to like send shit into the boss. Like
Yeah.
I don't know about sending. Okay, so the imps
They used to be hard in Legion, but now,
Yeah.
Yeah, normally right now, even at high levels, you don't need to send more than like 1 stop at a time, whether that be, Shockwave, Chaos Nova, something like that. You don't need to send more than 1 AoE stop at a time to actually interrupt the imps. If you have to send 2, I would be very, very surprised, even at the absolute highest levels of Tyran. So I think that like sending all of your offensive CDs into the boss is normally your best bet. And then just having 1 disrupt style effect assigned for each imp wave is going to normally be your best bet. I like lusting that boss at like a super high level, but I don't think that lusting it for like most people is your best play.
Yeah, I'd say on Tyrannical, you probably want to lust that boss now. Last boss is pretty easy now after all the changes they did. But on Fortified, I think you want to lust like the first pull of the dungeon, the second mini boss, the eyeball guy, because he's actually pretty dangerous.
Mike Wazowski.
And then the last boss or something.
You fuck that guy. That guy's actually hard as hell.
Okay. RP after second boss. Truth Guard Transmog for Paladins.
Yeah.
Spectral Sight for Demon Hunters. The way these abilities work is once you have all 5 clues, once somebody has talked to each of the rumor mongers or whatever, these will then let you identify where the demon is. The Truth Guard will just tell you which pack it's in, but the Spectral Sight will actually just show you which mob it is. So once you get the 5 clues, that turns on, and then you can do that.
I think Pally, you can just walk up right away. I don't think you need
maybe, okay. With Spectral Sight, I know you have to get the 5 clues, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got the little mini boss that has some Shroud. It has a Zul'Gah Mux mechanic and an Athrosine Infiltrator mechanic now, Vampiric Claws and the Hypnosis Bat through on that mob, which fair enough.
Yeah, it's basically Zul'Gah with a Shadowbolt Volley.
Yeah. I like to spawn all the bats in melee on that dude. Like even as a ranged, I like to really stand in melee to make sure that all the bats are able to get stopped either by like the tank or just like some ambient melee CC. So,
yeah, or freezing trap and ranged. Stand on.
Plus,
it's
trap. Better. Plus, it's better to just like stack it up anyways. And for any class that can potentially get like 1 target ramp off of a second target, it's better.
Yeah, true.
Okay, then last boss. How did the last boss work? Do you guys? Because I see in pugs, I see it kind of going all over the place. Then you see coordinated groups, and every image is standing right on the same spot, and the lines are always on the just the exact same spot as well. How do you go about making that happen?
So the strat to do the strat he's talking about is like the really high coordination. 1 ranged player baits every single jump, while every other player is in the middle of the room, directly in melee range. Like you have to be able to hit the boss with your staff melee range to not get targeted by his jump, and that way it's where it's going to go every time. And then if the ranged player knows the dance correctly, they can move out from the stack every time the slicing winds happens. But that's really not that necessary anymore after all these nerfs. That was necessary on like plus 20 and above last week, I'd say. But now it's you don't really have to know how to do that perfectly until 23, 24 probably.
It saves you. I think it saves you like damage for everybody that's not the person who's baiting. Like it allows you to be able to have better uptime on the boss generally because you're able to just like move it well. Now, one of the big things is like the slicing maelstrom. It comes off the copies of the baits, the blade surge baits that you drop, and it also the slicing maelstrom pulses out of the boss. And so if you're away from all of them, then you take the lowest amount of damage possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you have like a baseline amount of damage you take, 4 ticks per instance of damage, and then you also have to be 7 yards away from every clone and the boss to not get double ticked.
It's also physical damage, but I'm pretty sure it's not mitigated by armor.
I don't think so. It's though.
I'm pretty sure it's like Kragmaw Tantrum, where it's like it's physical, but it's not mitigated by armor. Because if it was mitigated by armor, some people would take like absolutely fucking no damage, and then mages would get boned.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Shadowmoon Burial Grounds.
Hold W, time key.
Hold W, time key. Yeah.
Press the W button. Let's see. If you're playing a tank, the Void Slashes can do some damage to you. So there you're going to want to shift from pressing W to pressing S. It's a complicated change in strategy, but that works pretty well against that one.
Bats. The bats can be interrupted with disrupts and they won't recast their fell spit. So 4 bats into the worm is a valid pull. And just AoE stun or something on them. What's the deal with Dominators, Trail?
Oh, Dominators are weird mobs, man. So when you walk into the Dominator packs, there's always the 2 on the sides of the pack channeling initially. And then you have like 1 mob off in the distance you want to include in the pull. So you pull him in and just kick only that mob for the whole pull until he dies. And then you choose one other to kick in to stack them better. But until that point, you just leave the 2 initial channels going. And they do, instead of like having 7 required kicks, you have like 3 required kicks for the pull. Now, if you want to, you can break their channels and do more damage to them, because while they're channeling, they make the pack tankier.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a lot of AoE stops or coordination, then I wouldn't do that.
What if your cringe Destrolock said, "Fuck you, I'm stunning this," and drops the Infernal on the pack?
Then you now have a lot of required kicks, and you're gonna have to figure it out.
And what if
basically
your cringe Destrolock did that?
No, that's fine. We live those.
We make it work. We
were strong.
Yeah.
So I mean, in general, in the Dominator packs, basically what he's saying is like, do not interrupt. If you don't interrupt, the pack is turbo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I have some goblin tech that you can do to get some trash either into the 3rd boss or onto the 2nd worm before the 3rd boss. If you have a goblin, they can jump off around the wall that usually stops you from progressing after Bone Maw until you kill Bone Maw, and then goblin jump back on, and then they can pull the mobs from that side, and then they can come back with Gust of Wind or jump into the water and jump up with the water, like swim back the waterway, or get life gripped or whatever, and they can come back, and then you can take those mobs into either a worm or into Bone Maw. So if you want to do a little speeding up of a very slow boss, because Bone Maw, for some reason, just has twice as much health as it feels like it has. Maybe it's just because it has no mechanics. I'm not sure, but that boss feels like it takes 7 years.
It does have a lot of health.
He also cues Inhale like a fucking weirdo. I don't understand that fight.
So you need to make sure you bait the puddles in melee so that your melee can keep doing damage during that. Other than that, though, fairly simple boss. I mean, there's really not much to be said about any of the bosses too much. I guess Ner'zhul is maybe one that there's some mechanics to talk about, but I don't know, Charles, do you have anything on any of the other stuff we just covered? Yeah.
Right before Ner'zhul, there's a couple things on the worm boss that are really annoying for melee, and I hate to tell you guys this, but half of your AoE spells won't hit the boss after he moves one time and beyond that for the rest of the fight, unless you're like literally inside of his model, almost off the platform.
Yeah.
Including Feral Druid Convoke, which is like, what the fuck?
I noticed this. I wasn't getting my 4-piece when I was revenging, and you have to actually get like right on the edge of the platform there. Yeah.
I can't hit him with Thrash or Brutal Slash or like fucking anything.
Kick.
Yeah. All right. How about last boss? How about Ner'zhul? How do this boss?
So first off, they changed the fight a little bit. What we're going to see in the clip is like we're skipping the wall.
Old strat.
Ignore that. They
do not ever do that. Yeah.
Don't do this. Now what you have to do is do this fight natty. You have to bait well. Basically, how the baits work is they go on only ranged targets. And so make
Non-healers
sure that
as well, right?
I
I think it won't target a healer if there's a ranged DPS. I think.
That is a good question because my Wrestle Shaman told me yesterday in my guild that it used to go on him and then it stopped going on him at some point. So I think
Okay.
they may have changed that to not target
I'm
healers.
pretty sure it doesn't target healers currently if you've got a ranged DPS, but I'm not 100% sure. So either way, bait. You want those players baiting in a good spot, right? Where is a good spot, Tuttles?
I think generally just on the outside of the room is
Yeah.
going to be preferred. Like you don't really. First off, point number one: don't bait it near melee. Like you do not want it to be baited near the boss at all because you don't want people taking pulsing damage, especially since it's Grievous this week. But like in general, you don't want them to take like 2 pulses of this thing because like 3 hits of it can probably kill you. Secondly, the most important thing to know is this wall sucks ass. The wall sucks ass, and the hitbox on the dust is really bad. And so, like, once you do kill one of the mobs from the wall, you need to make sure that you are like really hugging like the safe spot because otherwise you can get killed. And they said that they changed the dust from the ads to scale with key level, and what they didn't add is the fact that it now one shots.
Yeah, it's you do not get touched by that. You will die. There's basically no way around it. You will die.
Not really much else to say about the fight though. It's like pretty fine.
Yeah.
One extra tip
The
I
hard
have for
part
this
is just not getting
okay.
ticked by that trail of the ads as you like move, as like the range players move to bait. You have to like really hard corner around the trail, and then the melee also like just dodging the frontal can dip into it pretty easily and die too.
Yeah, I've accidentally touched it, and it's just like I felt like I wasn't even in that.
One extra tip I have for this dungeon, if you're playing a protection warrior, is the first boss gets a buff every so often that empowers their next 3 auto attacks to do extra magic damage. You can reflect one of those for big damn. So whenever you see that buff on the boss, make sure it's not about to go into a Dark Eclipse cast or something, or Communion cast or whatever, but whenever it's got that buff and not queued anything up in the next couple seconds, hit your reflect button, do some big damn.
Cool.
All right. I believe that is it for our dungeon section today. We actually do have some questions of the week to get to as well. Or I guess not questions of the week, but just questions. I guess they're of the week. But
They're
first,
going to end up being tips of the week. So
yeah, true. First, we get to thank our supporters over at the Patreon. They are Paul. What are these birds doing here? I love Dargon riding the wrong way and getting stuck, so I keep disconnecting. Oh, that's a common misconception. That's actually a connection issue you're having there. Never Nude, Jaw, King of Skills, Dratnos' Dino Pillow, Chromed, Trekkie, Chewy. Nasumi has retired from WoW due to work responsibilities, but will continue to support Titanforge podcast because it taught him that banking showers is a thing.
No, it's not.
It is.
Dratnos so happy right now.
It's like a Alchemy Transmute CD, man.
Shower daily. Shower daily. That's your Titanforge tip of the week. Shower fucking daily.
And all I'm saying is, you ever skip a day of dailies in WoW? When was the last time you did your dailies in WoW?
Every day.
ZivXX, Salty Senny, Necris, Sinmora, Tankdill, Nevuk, Eevee, Unholy DKs Rise Up, No Trick, I forgot I was subbed here, Daimat, Looper, Rework Mistweaver. A horse walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Hey pal, why the long face?" I don't get it. We'll have to hopefully get part 2 of the joke next week, of course. Nyx, Duck Gaming, Gallic, Brusive, Dratnos Abyss, There's an Imposter Among Us, Msanity, Xena, Rogue is now good enough for Prog, still bad enough to be sat for SLG, Bless Up, Red Color, YouTube.com/Workbringer, Alphabet Soup, Druid Friends of Evolved Gaming, Number 1 Simski for Trelsky, Lurka still manages to make raid and key groups while being on the other side of the planet. What's your excuse? Milk, Sifay, Pone, Windwalker Monks deal with nerfs by rolling with the punches. Due to Sims with 4-piece, Skelly will be going back to Elemental from Enhance. The real meta was the friends we made along the way. The Marsh Hare, Veil Strider Svar. Why do ducks never grow up? Because they grow down. Big Head Small Brain, Narnar TV is back and ready to press Starfall. Agitar, Juniper. Vivoker Pro Tip, while in Drakthir form, if you use your Headless Horseman's Hearthstone, you look really pog. Unconditional love and support for Nox, who claims not to be a real warlock without his Iridius Fragment. You get it before nerfs, buddy. Rat Run. This week's emo song lyric is, "If I could find you now, things would get better. We could leave this town and run forever." I know what song. I know. Hey, I know.
Love that song.
Yeah.
What's the name of the song? What's the name of the song?
I don't know.
Ocean's Avenue.
Shanzi. Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
It's yellow card.
Yeah, yellow card. And Mac3 KSU. Thanks all for the support. Q&A time. Our first question comes from Decker in Discord, who says, is it a trap to open Great Vault in tank loot spec like in Shadowlands? Depends. It depends. If you're a prot warrior and you have a good shield already, and you've got raid spots, I opened an arms spec this week because prot had like 6 dead items in the loot table and arms had 3, so I went arms loot spec for that reason. But if you're looking at like M+ spots, it depends. There are some trinkets in M+ that are coded as tank trinkets that you might be interested in, like Granite's Enduring Scale or something. I don't know. So look at the trinkets and see if there's ones that you want that drop for either type of loot spec, and see how many items don't drop in that loot spec. But it does depend on like if you're playing a DK, right? If you're a blood DK and you don't have a good weapon, you can still get a good weapon by going Unholy. If you're playing a prot warrior and you don't have a good shield, always open your vault in prot loot spec because you need a good shield. Like that's going to be your highest prio. But yeah, you kind of just got to look through the loot tables.
There's the burgeoning seed trinket for tanks. Some people like it. I really don't like it. I don't think it's very good, but I'd say if you're looking for the Decoration of Flame from raid, that's one way. That's one reason to go tank. Another one is the Granite Scale trinket, maybe the seed trinket if you really want that, and then otherwise I'd say go DPS.
Our next question comes from Lick in Discord, who says, with a few weeks of M+ down, now how do you feel about Blizzard nerfs of all tanks has worked out? Do you think there's any tank in particular who could use a buff to damage or survivability? They have buffed Brewmaster this week as well, right, on survivability.
Yes, actually, they're really good buffs. It's really good to see.
I haven't played with anything except for a Blood DK and a Pro.
Yeah. I feel like the nerfs to Blood DK and Prot Warrior were certainly fine. Those tanks feel extremely durable.
Drogo and Yoda seem like they've been doing well on Prot Paladin.
Yeah.
I think Prot Paladin is pretty good, yeah. I'd say Brew is up there with DK now. It's probably in the right hands, it's probably as good. Maybe even a little bit better. I don't know.
I think Druid could use a little bit of love, although even Druid I actually think is maybe even underrated. I don't know. All the tanks are like, okay, Warrior could use some more nerfs probably. Some nerfs to how well it mitigates physical damage probably are warranted. I'm not sure, but in general, like the blanket nerf to all tanks, I think has worked out reasonably well. I think the tanks as a whole feel durable. There's kind of this trap that, you know, Blizzard nerfed all the tanks, and people kind of interpreted that as like them saying that they're all equally balanced, or them saying like as like a class specific thing, right? Like, oh, this nerf is bad for Brewmasters or Druids or whatever. But I think if you just look at it through the lens of like, was a blanket nerf to tank survivability warranted? I think there was a lot of fear that we were going to have another squishy tank season, and I don't think that's come to pass. I think tank durability as a whole looks fine. Obviously, Prot Warrior though.
Yeah. I think
as a Prot Warrior player, I think you got a little bit of bias on that one.
Dude,
right now, but...
DK is I swear DK is tankier, man. I don't know.
Oh, hold on, I have a clip.
In raid, yeah, for sure.
Oh
yeah.
No, is this a clip of me or is this a clip of
It's a clip of somebody
Dreams,
else.
right?
Okay.
Yes, it's of Dreams.
This is a good clip.
Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
While he's talking though, or while he's looking, I think the nerfs were fine for like Blood DK, Warrior, and Pally maybe. Pally's kind of iffy in my mind, but I think Vengeance, Brewmaster, and Bear really got shot on the foot with that 10% DR nerf. I think they've had to all get buffed in some way. Some of them twice, like Brewmaster. Vengeance was just getting one shot super easily outside of meta in like 19s and 20s. And then I think all of them are probably in a decent spot now, except for Bear. It probably needs some more love.
Top 5 tank in the world, by the way. Can you run that one back one more time? Replay for the people, for those who blinked.
Oh no. What happens?
She runs up, she melees, and then she casts at him and one-shots him.
How about that?
He
has his bone shields as well. He has rune weapon as well.
Warrior sure as fuck is not dying like this.
Oh, I mean, Frigid Shard on pull, you just reflect the first one, so you're okay, but I don't know.
True, yeah. I mean, so that's a good example though. That boss meleeed a Blood Decay with mitigation up for over 400k, and
Yeah.
then she also blasts him with her auto attack after for like 300k probably.
Top 5
Whereas
world tank.
Prot Warrior would have taken like 40k. I looked at logs on this actually on the melee, and then they would have gotten hit by the shard for like a similar amount as the DK.
Yeah, I will say I have flopped on that encounter as a Prot Warrior as well, but not top 5 world tank or anything, so definitely a skill gap there. Itchy Legs in Discord asks, how do you feel about the eye level increments this expansion? Personally, I love them. Makes every key level feel like progression, and same with Raid. A guild clearing normal versus a guild only getting the first 2 bosses down. We'll have a better shot in Heroic because the eye level increases as you get deeper in the Raid.
I think that, so first off, I think the eye level increments for Raid have been more or less fine. It feels like it's actually very relevant with like the difficulty curve of the Raid. Maybe Broodkeeper shouldn't be that 424 level relative to like difficulty of the fight, and it should instead be the 421 level similar to Kurog and Dathia. But I think it kind of matched difficulty of the Raid as we got more item level. The eye level increments for me for M plus though was the big one. I know that this is a more raid focused question, but I think the eye level increments for M plus that they added all the way up until 20 has actually been a big success for me.
I'm loving it. This season I'm maintaining like 4 characters because I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the raid one, Stratnos?
I think they've been good. Yeah, I think the raid eye level has been good. I think the crafted eye level has come in pretty perfect. The amount of crafted gear has seemed good. The Great Vault M plus 20 eye level has felt good, but also plus 18, plus 16 have been strong, and those items are good, right? Like those are all mythic level gear. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good time to be like to be fully min max. There's a lot going on still, and obviously you're going to be the most geared the more you're doing. But you know, if you're able to just push up to 20s on your alt or whatever, like that is a hard progression experience on alt, but it is rewarding to do so and cool. Whereas it used to kind of be like farming 15s would get you like between heroic and mythic gear eventually, right? But was never particularly hard to do, right? It was just like, okay, I got to get my alt 15s done. Which, yeah, I think this is much more fun paradigm for both Raid and M+.
Yeah. I love that it challenges the Raiders too to get better at Mythic Plus, because 20s are not easy. These are really hard dungeons to just like walk in and do a 20, even if you're over geared for it. You got to know what's going on and like have some skills on how to recover in the moment and all that.
I think that just in general though, the eye level across like the whole entire game has felt better this patch. I haven't been hating it. It's been weird to get sources of gear from crafting. I will say that one's a bit strange, but I don't think it's like, I don't like that I've spent a jillion gold on it, and I'm gonna have to do a lot of sales to pay it back. But I don't mind wearing crafted gear.
Yeah, I think the crafted gear has been good. Obviously, the economy, the work order system. There's the thing, like the work order system feels kind of, at least the public side of it doesn't seem like it's really firing on all cylinders and stuff yet. But the like private crafting side, the personal order stuff seems pretty good. Seems like crafting and professions matter in a kind of way that they didn't used to, without it being like really, really annoying. Yeah.
So we have one question from chat.
Okay.
Ama1 says, tell Dratnos that his mental is at an all-time low and he needs his morale officer to raise it with a pizza party.
Yeah. That's.
Are you guys having a pizza party in Pop-Tart Corn Dog?
Yeah, Dippin will be buying us all pizza if we slay the boss encounter tonight. That is, you can take that to the bank and cash it. That's a guarantee.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can I join PC for like a week?
Sure. Yeah. We got pizza parties. We got
PC stands for Pizza Celebration.
Pizza Celebration. That's us. All right. Hopefully not premature celebration. That's what we're hoping to avoid. Hopefully we do kill it tonight.
Oh no. Heals the boss.
Yeah. Heals the boss. Oh no. All right. That is gonna be it for us this week. Hope everybody's enjoyed the episode. We'll be back next week with something, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Adios.
Adios.
GG's.